Hello, I'm Paulino Brenner, and I'm here to present to you another Minnesota World Language educator who is going to be presenting at the upcoming Central States Conference on the Teaching of Foreign Languages here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He will introduce himself and tell us what he's going to present at the conference. Hola, Grant.
Hello, I'm Grant Boulanger. I'm a middle school Spanish teacher at Skyview Middle School here in Oakdale, Minnesota. I've got two sessions here at the Central States coming up here in March that I'm excited about. The first session is a larger session about the movement in our district toward comprehensible input instruction, and the second is really sort of a nuts and bolts session about how we make that happen in the beginning language classroom. The first one, the one that addresses increasing achievement and enrollment throughout the district in the world language programs, really comes about from desire to see those upper level courses, the Spanish 4s, the Spanish 5s, the French 4s and 5s, really reflect the demographic of the schools that we have. When we look at the data, they don't reflect that demographic. If language acquisition can happen for all students, then we really should have a demographic in those upper level classes that mirrors the demographic in the entire school. So one thing that we decided to do a few years ago was to take a look at some data, pilot some instructional model changes, and see what that gave us. What we found out was that when we focus a little bit more in depth on providing interesting and compelling input to the lower levels, those students outperform the students that were in more of a traditional textbook class. So what we're really after is taking that triangle of 100 students in first year and 5 in fourth year, and really just blowing it wide open and saying, look, if there's 100 students in first year, why can't we have 100 students in fourth year? So we're going to look at a little bit of data. We're going to look at a little bit of achievement data on a proficiency exam that was actually created here in Minnesota at CARLA, at the Center for Advanced Research on Language Acquisition at the University of Minnesota. That's the proficiency assessment that we use at the end of the year. And we're going to take a look at how that achievement is playing out over the course of a couple of years of data. A new thing that we did there was create a goal statement for our World Language Department that focuses on communication. I'm going to share that goal statement with everybody, and people can use that as a model. Another thing that we do is we made a conscious decision at the district level to change our instructional model. And so now we have an instructional model that is called Teaching with Comprehensible Input. We are in the process of implementing changes and training for all of our staff to get on board with that. The second session is called Go Slow to Go Fast. It's about my transition from an immersion teacher and a traditional language teacher. I straddled both worlds for a number of years. And then at some point I said, you know what, really my calling is to reach these kids who are beginning students who really need at 13, 14, 15 years of age to have the reassurance that they really are language learners, that they can do it. And so how to go about doing that when your curriculum sort of is synonymous with the textbook of the day. And early on, I realized that really wasn't working for the majority of my students, and I started looking for other things that would get them more motivated, that would get them more engaged, that would lead to higher achievement. Over the years, I've sort of distilled that, and I'm feeling pretty confident here in the last several years that with demanding engagement from my kids, slowing down, making sure they're understanding me, and personalizing my classroom, those are three ingredients that are really getting me a lot of good achievement at the end of the year. So let me talk quickly about engagement. One of the tools that I use, when I say engagement, and I say demand engagement, and I really mean that, in my classroom, I'm in charge. I'm the boss and I'm the teacher. When I ask you to respond, and one of the things that I do is I ask my students to respond to every single thing I say, whether it's a statement or a question. I want you to respond in a way that demonstrates to me that you've understood. So why? Well, because we know that comprehensible input is the backbone of acquisition. So if comprehensible input is not understood, it's not comprehensible to the student in that moment in time. And so what I try to do there is I try to make sure that the student is getting it. either by giving me a simple nod of the head, so nonverbals in my beginning level class are okay, or with a single word answer, or, those answers grow and grow over time, so they turn into phrases and sentences. They turn into spontaneous utterances without kids trying. And one of the tools that I'm going to share with people is my Universal Interpersonal Communication Skills rubric, and it's a result of a lot of collaboration between a number of world language teachers who are headed off in this direction. And I have different versions. I have sort of an end of the classroom or an end of the class period exit ticket version, and I have a more complex, at the end of 2 weeks, this is kind of where you're at, and these are the things that you really need to work on version, and I'm going to share both of those with everybody. When I say go slow, what I really mean is we have to limit the vocabulary that we use with our kids, but at the same time, we have to talk to them in a way that's real, in a way that uses natural language. And so I'm going to share some tips and tricks on using the past tense, the present tense, and the future tense from day one in Spanish 1. One of the things that I always do on Monday mornings is I start off with, hey, where'd you go this weekend? Automatically they can learn from the beginning to talk about how they spent their weekend. One of the things that I like to tell them is, look, yeah, it's the past tense. I mean, actually, they don't get it because they're beginning level students. They don't understand in their minds the same sort of understanding that we have of, oh, you can only learn the present tense now, and you have to learn the past tense next year, right? They don't get that. We is just a word to them, right? So why can't they learn that word? The words are free. You can have whatever word you need to learn, whatever word you need to express what you need to express. That's one thing. And then the other tip I have for slowing down is really all of us classroom teachers have those moments in time where you just get the kids quiet and you're just about to give another instruction and the phone rings, or the door opens, or somebody's got the hiccups, or those kinds of classroom interruptions that just happen, and they have a tendency, especially in mid-February, right, when we're all tired and looking forward to the end of the winter, they have a tendency to frustrate us, or at least me. And so one of the ways that I deal with that is that I use those kinds of interruptions as a starting point for more language. Let me give you a quick example. About 4 years ago, I had a boy come into class 5 minutes late to class, tardy as can be, no pass. And he didn't just come into class, he came into class carrying the trash can from the hallway, just to be a funny guy. So I've got two options in that moment in time, right? I can either say, hey, come on, don't be an idiot. Take that trash can back out to the hallway, get in here, sit down, and be quiet and learn. Or I can say, oh, you brought a trash can. Hey, could you open that trash can for me? Could you close it? Could you look in it? Could you dance with it? Would you stick your arm in it? And so what we did in that particular classroom in that particular time is we spent the entire class period with that young boy TPRing a whole bunch of good vocabulary with the trash can. It was a really fantastic class. It brought lots of laughs, and I never got a kid bringing in a trash can in that class again. So that's one tip. I know I've got an agenda, but if there's a moment in time that we can deliver rich language because the interest level is high, I'm going to grab it and go with it. And so that means putting my agenda on the side. The third big ticket item is personalizing the classroom. One of the tips about that is what we did here with this young boy whose name was Josh. Well, he ended up having a nickname, El Papelero, because he brought the trash can in to the classroom, right? So everybody from that point on just called him, hey, Papelero, what's up? Comprehensible input has to be interesting. I mean, it doesn't have to be interesting, but it's not effective if it's not. And in fact, we know that Dr. Krashen is saying these days that it has to be compelling, not just interesting, which puts it at an entirely different level. And if we're going to provide interesting input to 8th graders in a language or to beginners, in a language that they don't understand, wow. If we come in with an agenda that is our agenda, and you have to learn these verbs by next Friday, and you have to learn about Juan and Maria, who are the pictures of the children in the book, you're going to have to work really hard to make that compelling. However, if you're talking about Josh, if you're talking about his mom, and his mom happens to have a 3-foot-long beard, well, holy cow. The kids are going to be on the edge of their seat listening attentively because they want to know more about Josh's mom. And that leads me to one of my last tips, which is to suspend reality. There's no reason why when we're talking with our students in the language that we have to limit it to reality. We have to believe it. We have to talk like we believe it. We have to believe their story, but we also have to invite creativity and imagination into the classroom. And that's really what I'm all about, is trying to create in my classroom a refuge for those students and that sort of thing. And so, I'm really hoping that teachers who are out there in the Central States area that are like-minded, that hear in what I have shared with you now a little bit of interesting stuff, that if I've piqued your curiosity, if you feel a little bit frustrated with the status quo of the way things are going, then I go into my class every day and have a great time, lots of smiles, lots of laughter, and at the end of the year I have really amazing results to share with people. So I'm hoping that people will come and check it out.
Thank you so much for sharing not just the information about your presentation, but already some really great tips that people can start thinking about. And I'm sure this is just the tip of the iceberg of what you're going to be presenting for 2 full hours at Central State, 1 hour for each presentation. So here's the invitation. One presentation called Raising Enrollment and Achievement through a focus on comprehensible input, and that is on Friday at 5 p.m. And the other one is Go Slow to Go Fast. 3 simple ingredients to engagement and accelerated acquisition for all, and that's on Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Please check all the information at the Central State website, csctfl.org, where you can also register for the conference. We hope to see lots of faces here in Minneapolis in March 13 and 14. The conference goes from the 12 as well. And I want to take this opportunity to also invite you for another preview of another educator, not from Minnesota, but who will be at Central State. Her name is Sara-Elizabeth Cottrell, and she will be presenting at Central State. And I'm going to have a live interview with her on Saturday, February 28th at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. She's going to be sharing a lot of useful information. She has developed her own materials and authentic materials with us, and it's going to be an interactive session. You can find more information at epcshow.com, and I hope that we can get a lot of teachers to ask her questions. I want to say thank you to Grant. Thank you for taking time to share with us your passion, and the information about your sessions, and I hope a lot of people come and visit and talk to you at Central States.
Great, Paulino. Thank you very much for having me. I look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.